In this session, we are going to use exactly the same tools that we used before, but this time we are going to level up. Here is the plan for today. We are going to generate multiple metrics with custom patterns this time, and we are going to do an advanced statistical analysis. And for the dashboard, we are going to edit parameters on the fly. So let's do a quick recap of what we did before. In our previous session, we had generated a time series. We analyzed it, we did some basic statistical analysis, and we created a dashboard. This time, we are going to create a copy of the previous file and going to add a bunch of new things on top of that. So let's create a copy and rename it to version 2. Let's go ahead and write our prompt to generate our multiple metrics. I'm also interested in setting different parameters across different time frames. So let's see what the suggested code looks like. You can see that it has defined some functions which take in our time series, and you'll notice that the term metrics, it is interpreting it as our statistical terms. So I think there is a confusion here in terms of what we need and what it is giving us, but that is okay for now. We'll go ahead with what we have and continue to observe. Let's look at the custom time frames. You can see that the custom time frames are not continuous. You have 2021 initially, in between you got 2023, and then at the next position you again have 2021. So it's completely fine because the idea is that we can later on customize it. So let's go ahead and run this code. So here you can see that the data frame that's come out is not like what I really asked it to do, but it is something that I would have asked it later on when we analyze our time series. Therefore, we are going to keep this for later use. So here you can see the reason why it was confusing the terms that I was using in my prompt before versus what the code block actually has. So you can see that the time series is written as TSDF, and the term metric has been associated with our statistical terms. So this time I will be a bit clear on what I want. So I'm going to say that create 5 new time series in which I can set the statistical parameters across time frames, and let's see what it gives us. When I run this code, you can see that this time it has generated what we need. We can double confirm through value counts that our data frame really has all the 5 series that we asked it for. Now that we have generated our multiple metrics, it's time to do our advanced statistical analysis. We already got one of the elements that we needed, that is the statistical terms calculated across different time frames. But we'll need a couple of more things, and we'll be creating more advanced visualizations this time. I have referenced the variable name in our prompt that has the time series data. So let's run this code and check if we get the statistical terms for our different series. And yes, this time we've got it. Okay, so let's do something more. This time I want to calculate correlations among the different time frames and different series. So to do that, let's write the prompt. And when you run this code, you see that this is giving us a correlation between the statistical terms themselves, and that is not what we want, right? So this is not what we want, definitely. So we're gonna have to write the prompt again with some clarification. So in order to clarify, I'm gonna give an example, like I'm talking about the time series, series 1 to series 5 instead of the metrics. And when you run this code, you'll see that this time it has run well. So this is what we wanted. And if you look at the table, you see that the correlations have been calculated across different time frames for the same series. There's another way, what we would like to do more, that we can calculate the correlations between different series across the same time frame. So that is also something that we would like to do. So let's rewrite the prompt accordingly, and when we are going to run it this time, see that this table is exactly what we asked for. So with all these calculations, we've got our 4 advanced calculations this time, and let's summarize what we have so that we can continue to make some visualizations accordingly. So now we are off to creating some visualizations. Let's look back what we did in the previous session. We had a time series graph, but it was not just a time series graph, there was also some box plot inside it. And the way we had created it, it had quite a lot of information, and that was something nice I had. But this time we're gonna create a simpler time series plot, not with all the box plots as well, but we will also have 3 more elements. The kind of calculation that we have did, we are going to plot all of that. So all in all, we'll have a 2 by 2 grid of 4 plots. So in order to describe the plot, my prompt is going to get a bit big. So let's see if it gets it right in the first attempt, or we'll have to make multiple attempts in order to refine. So in the suggested code, you can see that we have a new package to install, and it's called IPY widgets. Now it's not really so this package is a really nice package for interactive elements, but to be honest, this works pretty well inside Jupyter environment, the Jupyter Lab environment or Jupyter Notebook environment, but inside VS Code it creates issues. And I did install it right here, and I did check the suggested code, but this didn't really create the kind of visualizations that we wanted, and the kind of interactivity that it really offers does not really work well inside VS Code. So we are not going to work with this part of the code. We are going to have to edit the prompt in order to avoid making it like this. So I have installed the IPY widgets package and I'm running the suggested code. But what you can see is that even though the 4 elements that we wanted to plot, they have been plotted using the Plotly, the interactivity that had to come through IPY widgets, like a drop down for changing the series, that is not really working here, and I have no way to change the series directly on the plot, just as we do it in some kind of a dashboard. So that's not happening, so I'm gonna have to rewrite. So here, this is what I wrote in order to improve upon the previous prompt. And when I ran this, it just didn't work. So whatever the previous prompt did, the previous code did, it just sent my session into a standstill, and any new code execution is not working anymore. So it's just taking forever. So I had to stop this and try to find another way. So I had to close everything, including VS Code, and restart it and run everything again. But this time I'm not going to use IPY widgets. So in writing my prompt, I will be very explicit that I want to use Plotly graph, and a couple of adjustments, more clarification about what I want, and based on the suggested code, when I run this, and you see that, yeah, this time I've got the visualizations, and you notice that I'm creating these visualizations in a way like there is a custom function to create all this visualization for a particular series. So whenever I have to create this visualization for a different series, I just have to give in the name of the series. Now I want to use the AI tool once again and do some refinements on this plot. One of the issues is about number formatting, so I do not need to see too many digits after the decimal place. So that's one thing. And then some of the labels are getting too long to be displayed, so I need some shorter labels there. So that's what I'm gonna ask, and let's see what it gives us. So let me run this code and replot series 2, and there you go, you have shorter labels in the time frame, you can see, and the shorter numbers. So it has done a great job here. And likewise in the correlation plots, you can see the labels are shorter, and so are the numbers. The numbers in the time series, however, are not shortened, but that's okay. There's one more thing I want to do for refinement. I want to map the time frames in the time series and the metrics table with some colors. So let's write the prompt for that purpose. And here is the suggested code. In the suggested code, you can see it has allocated some colors to our time frames. I have actually ran the code, but I'm not seeing the desired results, so I'm trying to check what's the issue here. So my guess is that perhaps the issue is in the way our custom time frames have been defined. So we'll have a closer look at how they are defined. So this is how our custom time frames look like. If we look at the data type of this structure, it's a list. If we look at the 0th element of that list, it's a tuple. And if we look at the 0th element of that tuple, it's a string. So basically our time frame is written as a string and not as a datetime object. So next I'm going to write a prompt to make the conversion into a datetime object, and that's a tiny snippet. And here is how it looks like, and you can see the comparison. So next I'm going to find the place in the code where this time frame is being used and replace the converted variable with that. And when I run the code now, I still do not see the desired changes. I spent a little more time on trying to find out why the desired changes are not coming up. So what I found was that the way the figure is created, so there are different parts in the code, so one after the other things are getting executed. So basically the time series plot that is coming later on, that is actually blocking the part which is creating the background rectangles which I want in my time frame. And the rectangles are getting created first and then the time series plot. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to reverse the order. And when I run it this time you can see there are some colors on the time series plot. So I'll go ahead and change the alpha value of the colors so that the rectangles look a little more prominent. There is an alpha value for the rectangle as well. You can change that, and you can also change the layer being above or below the time series plot, so that will also affect how the visualization looks like. There is just one last thing I still want to do. The time frame labels are not getting color coded because that's something I really want to do. I want to color code. I want to use the same colors that are being used on the time series plot. So because our code has grown bigger and the prompt that we used was also quite big, so I don't want to make undesirable changes into this. So the kind of functionality I'm trying to introduce, I just asked that separately on a browser in the main ChatGPT outside of VS Code. So with that I got some tiny snippet and I'm pasting it here. What it does, it uses the colors that have been defined in our code and applies that to the time frame labels there in the table, and this has to be placed just before the table declaration. So I will remove the original table trace and run the code. So here you go, our time frames are also colored now. And if you remember, our time frames were not continuous, so that's not an issue right now, but that's why you see TF4 which has a pink shade. That's the second time frame there. So that's not an issue right now, but we can choose custom time frames later on. So now that we have done everything from advanced analysis to advanced visualizations, now we need to reorganize the good things from the code and clean up. And you can get the clean file on my GitHub account. The link is in the description below. It's time to build a dashboard now. So I'm going to delete the previous code that we built because we are going to do things differently this time. Okay, so because we are going to do things differently and in a more advanced way this time, the prompt is going to be big as well. And because of that, rather than writing the entire prompt right here, I've created a text file where I've written down what I want, and I'm going to just copy and paste that here. And I'm going to run it now. So let's see how big the code is going to be this time. So this looks like a big code, and you can notice that there is something that needs to be installed. It's -dac. I don't know what that is because I'm not really experienced in using all the features that dash package has. So let's install this and find out what it does. And clean up. One of the first few things that caught my eye looking at the code is a small error here that I asked it to generate a big timeline for me and use the latest date and a very early date to define those extremes. But what it did, it used today for the earliest date, and then it just added a bunch of days to define the latest date, which is not what I wanted. So I'm gonna change that right now. Let's have a quick look at the rest of the code. I asked it to define some default time frames. For each defined time frame, it has associated some colors accordingly. Now we are looking at our series parameters. So I asked it to define two sets of initial default series parameters. Now we are looking at some of the helper functions, basically something to define our time series using the parameters that we have defined. If you look at the return statement here, it's going to be a data frame with columns date and value. This function over here basically is calculating the basic statistics, like what we asked it to do regarding the minimum value, the median value, and the max value, along with a quantile for 80% of the data. This will also return a data frame. Next we have our time frame correlation function, which takes in the series df data, that is the data frame, and our time frames, and is expected to give us in the output a data frame containing the correlations with columns and indices based on the labels of the time frames. Next we have our series correlation function, which takes in a dictionary of series, our time frames, and our chosen time frame, because we have to choose one time frame to show the series correlation. And this is also expected to return the correlation data frame with indices and columns according to the names of the series. Beyond this point, we are going into the app layout part of the code, where the dash app is primarily defined, the layout of all the UI elements and the associated callback functions. You can see we've got our date picker range and color picker right inside our function that allows picking our colors based on the time frame. The next function helps us in defining the parameters for the series, and then this part is primarily about the overall layout of the different UI elements. By looking at the labels, you can quickly get an understanding about which UI element refers to which functionality. And I just noticed that the callbacks have not been defined. It has just put a note here that we will be implementing some callbacks here. So it has done only half of the job. We are definitely going to have to do some work here, and we'll use the AI tool again. However, I would still like to run the code anyway, just to see if the layout of the UI elements is coming all fine. Okay, so everything looks empty right now. It has got our extreme dates for the overall timeline, and our buttons to add the time frames or series won't work because they actually depend on the callbacks, so we will be doing that later on. Our drop down for the series is also empty. There are no series, and so is the drop down for the time frame. So if we just talk about the layout, it has captured the things which I asked it and put everything in place. We'll definitely need to do some adjustments here, and we'll do that later on, but let's focus on building some callbacks. So in the next prompt, I simply asked it to make some callbacks for dynamic plotting, and I also mentioned that everything about the layout is good, so you just need to focus this time on making the dynamic plotting. So now if you look at this new part of the code, we can't simply run this part separately because this is primarily the callbacks for the function, the main dashboard code above. So I'm gonna make a copy of this part and paste it into the main dashboard code. If we take a quick look at the functions down below, you'll see that these are the kind of functions that give interactivity to our static UI elements which are placed already there. So all the functionality of interactivity comes through these callbacks, and if a value is changed in one of the UI elements, basically the different UI elements are going to interact with each other, and we want the dashboard to update things or the other UI elements accordingly when we change some parameters here and there, and it has to happen dynamically while the dashboard is live. So that kind of functionality is coming because of these callback functions. And if you notice, there is some kind of a pattern in these callbacks, the way they are defined, and I'll quickly show the general structure of a callback function in Python dash. I've just run the code with the callbacks added, and the new dashboard output looks like this. Some quick observations here that two of our plots are filled, the time series and the table for the basic statistics, but our correlation plots are empty. And down below you can see we've got some errors, and the good thing about running the dashboard code right inside here is that we get some errors printed out right here. If we directly view the dashboard on the browser, we will get the errors notified there as well, but not with all the detail that comes down here. So it's that this is the reason that we should keep an eye right on these kind of errors as well. But anyway, let's have a quick look at how this dashboard is looking in the browser. Okay, so now I need to write a prompt to tell the AI tool that what's missing from my dashboard. So basically I told it that when I click the buttons for add series or add custom time frames, nothing happens, and that they are supposed to open up the editable parameters, which I can then use to alter my series or the custom time frames. And as soon as I alter these, the plots must be refreshed. And apart from all these, there was another issue that the correlations were not being displayed or calculated. So whatever was the issue, please find it and rectify it. Now we are looking at the resulting dashboard from the previous prompt. Now checking the series parameters, trying to edit, and we can see that it's now getting refreshed every time I try to edit. So I added 2 series totaling 4 now. And the drop down also is getting populated with the relevant series. Let's try to add a custom time frame now. So it is showing us all the default time frames, each of which we can now edit or simply delete if we don't need them. As you can see, a custom time frame 6 has been added. Let's rename it to Q1. Let's change the span. And we can see that the table for the basic stats has already been populated with the stats of the new time frame. Our series correlation is coming close to 1 because all our series are pretty much similar. So we'll play with the parameters later on, but first let's add a button to hide the parameters. I didn't like the amount of space our editable parameters were taking up when we were editing. So basically I just want that once I'm finished with editing, I want those parameters to be hidden once again. And particularly I've only asked for a suggestion without altering the code. So let's see how it responds. This is actually Markdown. So if you change the cell type from Python to Markdown, then you'll be able to see much better. It has neatly written down all these steps and explained which part does what. So I think it's good to go ahead and let's write a new prompt to just alter the code as well for incorporating this part. So we will check the result of this part later on, but first I think it's a higher priority to troubleshoot why the time correlation functions plot is not working. So in order to do that, one of the basic things while working with custom functions is that we can add a print statement somewhere, anywhere in within the function to print what kind of a variable is there. So in order to do that, I actually did it for multiple variables, and I think one of the most relevant here was this one. And if you recall, any of the print statements get printed in the output cell just down below the dashboard, and this informed me that the data was getting filtered into an empty dataset. So I wrote a bunch of more prompts trying to fix this, and I even looked it manually to use my experience to figure out what is causing this and how I can fix it. I managed to fix it by ensuring that equal span time frames should be considered only, rather than having different time span when calculating the correlations there. You're looking at the final dashboard now after I made a bunch of more changes. I changed the extreme dates to use only past 90 days. I changed the width of the drop downs to something which looks better. I played with the series parameters to just keep their mean value to 0 for ensuring a better time frame correlation output. I introduced the previous 4 weeks time frame as a default one. All my correlation functions are now calculating the values as intended, just showing on the right the altered version of the time correlation function. So this session is now complete. A reminder that you can get all the files on my GitHub account. And lastly, I'm giving you a visual summary of the dashboard code structure. Thank you.